Water, drought, agriculture and desertification. These are four contrasting pair of words but are very much intertwined in the present times. And why am I talking about them? Well, there are no specific days to talk about them. And also, there's one country who is heavily witnessing these two Ds, that is ours, India. But there is yet another country which has the solution. We'll bring that up in the end. So, why do we need water? Or first we shall discuss what is about life without water, that is drought. What actually is a drought? Less rainfall or no rainfall and situation form thereof, and pretty much that's it. At least it's what the Indian states believe when they have to declare the state of drought in their respective states. But according to National Disaster Management Authority or NDMA, the drought is no more defined as after scenario of a bad or scanty rainfall, but unplanned and non-astute water planning, over-exploitation resulting to a dry situation. And what is desertification? It is a mere transformation of a greener area to a drier area. Now, India asks its population, which is 18% of the world's population, to thrive on a water that is 4% of the world's share. According to 5th National Report on Desertification, Land Degradation and Drought, 68% of the country is drought prone, which will heighten with the advancing climate change. 25% of India's total land is undergoing desertification, while 32% is facing degradation. That has affected productivity, critically impacting livelihoods and food security of millions of Indians. India receives a rainfall of around 1000 millimeters in a calendar year, better than most Middle East Asian nations. There's an estimate that we need around 135 liters of water daily per person, but we are receiving around 69 liters in urban areas, where according to UN, 50% of the population will live in 2050. The per capita water availability has already fallen from 3000 cubic meters to 1123 cubic meter. So let's talk about the agriculture and water and of course irrigation and farmers. So irrigation in India accounts for 80% of water use, and 60% of irrigation is dependent upon groundwater. While 55% of India's total water comes from groundwater, and out of which 30% of urban and 70% of rural supply comes from groundwater. In past 4 decades, unregulated use of groundwater has led to an overexploitation of aquifers. The groundwater is being recharged more slowly than we are consuming. According to norms, there should be 5 bore wells in every square kilometers with a depth of 200 feet. But in Latur, Maharashtra, there is 90,000 bore wells in an area of 715 square kilometers, with some of depth even around 1300 feet. The current policy framework has failed to regulate groundwater exploitation. Since time immemorial, India has had a tradition of water harvesting, which had been reflected in Chandel era ponds in Bundelkhand and several other kings which constructed different sorts of water harvesting methods. Today, out of 12,000 such known Chandel era ponds, only 2,000 remains in the Bundelkhand area, thanks to land mafias and encroachment. Thus, it isn't surprising to see the Bundelkhand is moving towards desertification, where only 10% of the population is getting sufficient drinking water. Now, another area where I should lay my emphasis on is the Marathwada region in the Maharashtra. Maharashtra's 90% of water resources have already dried up. And why are we discussing Marathwada? Because there are so dried up regions, but why Marathwada? Because here you will see what wrong agricultural cropping patterns can do to the water resources. Marathwada has shifted to water intensive crops such as sugarcane. There is an unsuitable geoclimate conditions which is not suitable for sugarcane anywhere. Sugarcane there covers 4% of cropped area but draws 71% of water, irrigation waters there in Marathwada. Farmers are spending anywhere around from 1 lakh for 1000 feet bore wells to 2 lakh for pump sets. Marathwada has 11 major dams to support 20% of land irrigation, but so far it has provided only 8%. The government have specifically chosen to invest in large dam projects which still irrigates a net area of only 45%. In spite of many large and medium-sized irrigation works, area irrigated had come down to 3.2 million hectares between 1992 and 2004. Traditional irrigation methods of micro-irrigation such as check dams are mostly neglected because they do not bring enough PR for the ruling parties and the politicians. And also they cannot be quantified as easily as big dams which are named in famous personalities. Now even hand pumps have had their share of bad luck. 25% in Uttar Pradesh, 27% in Jharkhand, 56% in Rajasthan and 90% in Maharashtra are completely dysfunctional or useless. Wells also do not possess a great picture. UP reported 74% of wells as dried. And what's disheartening here is to see that governments talk about the farmer distresses and loan waiver schemes, but seldom do they address the water situation, the real picture of the agriculture. Last year, Modi ji came up with a slogan, more crop per drop, which basically translates to how much water you are using should yield more crops. Now, it's absolutely necessary. Crops like rice and sugarcane are not for regions like Punjab, Haryana and West UP. These are water-intensive crops and areas such as these are drier relatively. And farmers in these regions are irrigating the lands with pumps, often leaving them turned on for hours. Thanks to the the flat rate of electricity and subsidy on top of it. So these areas do not receive rainfall as much as they should have when you are going for these water-intensive crops like rice and sugarcane. So the agriculture in India has been the biggest reason for groundwater depletion. But the culprit is the non-availability of better crop techniques and absence of trade policies in India. As such, farmers are not being nudged to shift towards crops which use less water. Let me tell you, till 2030, Bangalore will see its zero day. Cape Town of South Africa had already been expecting it in 2018, but sudden change in water used by people pushed it forward. Zero day, what's that? That's the day where no one will have a single drop of water. So now another thing, a very important thing which most of the people they do not know, they do not understand, is the water footprint of the food. It's a term used by the water ecologists, which simply mean the amount of water used in raising a food to bringing it to your plate. Surprisingly, 1 kg of potato takes about 287 liters of water, from irrigation to washing of fertilizers, etc. etc. Similarly, rice takes 1673 liters for 1 kg. You know the amount of irrigation it requires. You have seen the rice paddy fields submerged with water, logged with water. Now let's talk about the meat. The beef takes 112 liters of water to produce 1 gram of protein. Not 1 kg of meat, 1 gram of protein. What you get from the meat takes 112 liters of water to produce. Whereas chicken takes 34 of liters to do that. While pulses or dal takes about 16 liters of water to give you 1 gram of protein. Now, as a matter of fact, India has been the biggest exporter of beef. It was in 2016. Now imagine the amount of meat exported. Now what normal people do not see is the water stored in the meat. I told you beef takes 112 liters of water to produce 1 gram of protein. So it contains water equivalent, what all amount of beef or the meat which has been exported. I'm not talking just about the beef. Every meat which India exports contains water equivalent to 28 cubic kilometers, which can sustain all Indian household for half a year. Now imagine this, we are exporting this much of water out of our nation every year. And then we have regions like Gujarat, the Latur, the Marathwada region, where the farmers commit suicide, they have drier spells, we have droughts. That is why it may be advised to refrain from beef, which is environmentally non-sustainable. I'm not advising you that, but I'm telling you the environmental aspect of the beef, of consuming beef. We're exporting this amount of water to the foreign countries when we have water in scarcity. So at the last, I would like you to go and search on YouTube. If you still do not comprehend the degree of the scarcity of water, the problems people are facing in different parts, there's a video about water wives. It is a concept of Marathwada regions in Maharashtra. It is known as water wives, where males marry multiple times just to bring in a female who can walk 12 hours every day to bring water. It's a very emotional video. It showcases a family of a male who married 3 women, wherein the first wife used to carry kids, second wife and the third wife used to go out and fetch water. It takes them 12 hours to go and return back to their home for bringing water. So it's a video where you will see how patriarchy is pushing females deeper in times of water crisis. And on the top of it, there are still cases in few tribal parts of India where Dalits are not allowed to use water commons, even in dry drought times. So I would tell you, drought is not just natural, it's man-made, especially in these times, the era where we are living. Last year you saw we were having extreme drought conditions in many metropolitan cities like Chennai specifically and the Bangalore, much because of what we did to their numerous lakes. If you do not know, Chennai and Bangalore has been specifically famous for their numerous lakes and the water system they had. And in 2 months' time, just when many cities were going water scarce, there were speculations, there were announcement for companies that they will shut down, they are shutting down and they are choosing to work from home. The time when they were going just water scarce, the 0 day, boom, Indian monsoon knocks the door, and what we saw? Floods in Bihar, Assam, and even these parts of the cities which were prior to this monsoon were going water scarce. Why this happened? This happens due to our unplanned use of resources, our encroachment of the lakes. We have destroyed many river basins. So when the rain or the monsoon occurs, we do not have the natural basins, the river sinks where this water can go. We have destroyed them. So we witness urban floods. Although there are rural floods also, because we have diverted the course of the rivers, we have built dams. The dam pose a natural threat to the natural flow of the river, and thus we see floods in the rural areas, and due to our unplanned urbanization in the cities, we see urban floods more often than the rural floods. You have heard of that company, Dabur. It's working in the Rajasthan villages, and under its CSR initiatives, it helped rejuvenate the old traditional tanka system, the storage and usage, tried to rejuvenate that, which helped eventually for the villages to be self-reliant in terms of water in dry season. I request you to go and read about Dabur's CSR initiatives in Rajasthan. Now similarly, there's a village in Madhya Pradesh where the head of that village, actually there was a railway project going on there. So the company was needed to dig sand out of the land. So the village head came up with a great idea. In return for taking out the sand from the area, he instructed the companies that they can go and dig out the sands, but they will do that in a fashion which will create interconnected lake systems. by which eventually they could had water in excess capacity. Last year there was this news, I do not remember the name of the village, it was in Madhya Pradesh. So they had excess of water so that they could donate to nearby villages. So earlier I told you about a country who has solved the problem of two Ds, that is drought and desertification. So it's Israel. They have employed efficient agricultural irrigation techniques such as drip irrigation and sewage treatment system. Remember, Israel is in Middle East, which experience very little rainfall, and these areas are the epitome of the desertification. So there is a need for government to change policies regarding water use and agriculture, as well as prioritizing the traditional knowledge and micro irrigation. And also it's imperative that we should change our consumption pattern and should accept the fact that water isn't unlimited and that we may run out of it in 2050. Your future generation will have you to curse. So before wrapping up all of this, I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi, that there is enough for everyone's need, but there's little for their greeds.